Hey, I'm Jason Vlad, instructional designer and master trainer. Let's go over today's agenda for what to expect in today's webinar. First, we're going to talk about what is Audiate. And yep, that's how you pronounce it. The separate tool here from TechSmith that we released about a year ago or so. We're going to talk about when to use Audiate, what its applications are. We're going to do a live recording sample, and then we're going to edit it along with showing you how to utilize some of the effects, as well as taking time at the end and possibly interspersed throughout for some of your Q&A. First, let's start off with audio best practices. These are just general best practices, regardless if you're using Audiate or not. And this will be just about the end of my slideshow, so be prepared for that. First is your microphone. We always recommend, if you have the ability to plug in some sort of external microphone. These could be USB based, they could be XLR based. If you have access to a microphone that's not the built-in one to your device, like a lot of people tend to use the built-in microphone on your laptop. If you have the option to use an external one, we recommend that. However, if all you've got available to you is the microphone built into your laptop, don't let that be the enemy of getting your project done. Utilize that microphone. Tools like Audiate will help you actually make that sound better than you think is possible. The reason I choose to use the microphone outside of my laptop is it's away from my clicking of the keyboard, it's away from the fans, and it sometimes adds a better quality experience. Whether it's a $40 microphone or a $400 microphone, your USB or an external mic is going to give you a better result. The second thing I want to talk about is the room you're recording in. Not everybody has access to a recording booth. I don't. I've been working from home for many a year, and I've kind of changed up how my setup works. Everything from putting heavy curtains on my windows to closing the door so when everyone's at home, they know that I'm recording, to get some control over my environment. I sit in the same place, or when I'm recording voiceover, I stand in the same place and make sure my mic is about 6 to 8 inches from my mouth, which is typically the extension of your pinky to your thumb. In fact, I'll bring the microphone up. That's the microphone I'm using today. So it's just out of the camera, but it's right in that same 6 to 8 inch range. Also, make sure you take time to do some sample recordings with that microphone and with your room to make sure that you know how the room and how the microphone behaves. Next is your voice. There's certain things you can control about your voice. One, this sounds harsh, but a lot of people don't like the sound of their voice, right? If that's what you sound like, make sure you're comfortable with it. And you can make subtle adjustments using the tools to make adjustments to how you sound. But make sure that you're well hydrated. Try not to drink anything dairy-based or heavily caffeinated like the coffee that I live and breathe on before you do recording, because all those things can affect your voice as well. And last but certainly not least is your mom. Seriously. It's always good to smile and pretend you're talking to someone when you're doing your voiceover, or when you're talking to a camera, when you're recording your voice, because that endears you to the audience that you're creating. We always talk about recording, talking to our mothers, because I'm going to slow my rate of speech to explain it to her in the best possible way I can. Now, to get a sense of who we have in the audience today, I actually want to initiate a quick poll. This is an interactive poll, so when the answer that comes up on your screen corresponds to your situation, I'd love for you to be able to just answer that for me, just to get a sense of who is in our audience. So let's start with the 3 questions you have on the screen. The first one is, how do you currently edit your audio? I know we asked this question during your enrollment for this webinar, but I'd like to know how you edit your audio currently. Do you use Camtasia? Do you use Audacity? Do you use Audition, or some other tool? So go ahead and click on the answer that makes the most sense to you. And Ryan, can you double check that you are seeing that on your screen as well?
Yes, I am. It looks like some responses are coming in, so that's good.
Oh, great. Thank you. The second question is, how do you like to make your recordings? Do you do audio first, video first, or are you like me, where you do both at the same time, depending on the project? And the last question is actually multiple choice. You can pick multiple answers, and that is, what issues do you typically have when you're recording audio? Everything from you don't know about which equipment to use, you don't like the sound of your voice, proper recording techniques, environment, you name it. I'm going to give everyone about 1 additional minute to answer these questions, and then we'll share the results with everyone. And then we're going to get into Audiate. I'm going to show it off, and walk through a sample project. And make sure as questions come up that you use that Q&A feature within Zoom Webinar to ask questions of me and the team that's supporting us today, Mike, Dan, Jake, Troy, and Mike Part 2. I only say Mike Part 2 because we have 2 mics. We're very fortunate with our mic quota for today's webinar. All right, Ryan, I'm going to end this poll and let's share the results. So let's start with how do you currently edit your audio? 64% of today's attendees are using Camtasia, 12% are using Audacity, 4% are using Audition, then another 20% are using another tool. So appreciate you letting us know about that. And then how do you make your first recordings, or how do you make your recordings? An overwhelming 67% record at the same time. So that's how I do a lot of my videos when I do the off the cuff style, or what we describe as tier 3 videos, where I know my content, I hit record and I go. Now, what issues do you typically have with recording audio? We are pretty even across the board, but the biggest one is can't seem to edit it to sound the way you want. And I don't know the proper recording techniques. These are things that Audiate can assist with. So thank you so much for taking the time to fill out that poll. Let's get ourselves into, we'll talk about this at the end, Ryan, don't let me forget. Let's bring up Audiate. Excuse me. So the biggest thing that I like to talk to people about with Audiate is, what is it? Well, it is a multifaceted tool, but at its core, it is designed for recording your audio, and it can live transcribe your spoken word, either if you're recording it live right into Audiate, or if you're bringing it in from an external source, whether it's from Camtasia or something you've recorded in another tool or with another device. Audiate is designed to be able to take that audio in, edit the audio by editing the actual transcribed text on the screen. And then if you so choose, applying one or multiple effects within Audiate to get that audio to sound exactly the way you want. So let's talk about those 3 use cases individually. First is straight recording. I call these off-the-cuff recordings, which is bringing up Audiate, which, because it is a subscription service, every time you launch Audiate, you are getting the newest version possible. This happens to me quite often. It happened yesterday when I was actually working with some of the developers in this in the support, which was every time I opened Audiate, it downloaded and installed a brand new version, because they're constantly making adjustments and tweaks and enhancements to make sure that the experience that you have utilizing Audiate is at its top tier. Everything from the introduction of new tools and new workflows to, frankly, fixing bugs and little quirky things that are not working the way that we intend. So that is simply done by hitting the record button. You'll get a 3, 2, 1 countdown, and I'm actually going to do this here in a couple minutes. And then Audiate will live transcribe it as it's happening. The second use case is to record based on a script that you have. Now, I'm going to be reading from a script. It's actually a script of a video that's currently being developed by me for our Snagit product. It's just talking about new tools that people might not know about that are already in the product. So the example I'm going to give is an actual video that's going to live on our tutorial page and on our YouTube channel in the next couple months or so, as soon as we get it all polished and set up to go. So recording that, it'll live transcribe just the same way, but I will hopefully not ramble so much because I've got a script to read from, and then I'll be able to make those edits inside of Audiate. A third way is to import audio directly from Camtasia. So if you've got the newest version of Camtasia, Camtasia 2021, and you actually export your audio, one of the options is to bring it into Audiate if you have Audiate installed. Now, this is a good time to bring up, Audiate is actually a separate product. It's not built into Camtasia. It's not part of Camtasia. It's a separate product. And a lot of people tend to ask us, well, where do I find it? Well, you can actually go right to techsmith.com. And at the top of the screen, you'll find an option that says products. And Audiate is sitting right here on the bottom in the middle row. And you can click on Audiate and it'll bring you to our Audiate page. Gives you a little preview of what Audiate's all about. And the thing I want to draw you to is you can download and try a free trial of Audiate. I believe the trial is 7 days long. Gives you an opportunity to record with it, to experience the effects, to create caption files, those SRT files that can be brought into Camtasia can be uploaded to YouTube, so you've got captions already built in and timed perfectly to your spoken word. You can do that right from the TechSmith webpage. And if you get stuck or you want a little help, if you go to our support page and the tutorials, we actually have a tutorial page dedicated to Audiate. Everything from learning the basics to how to apply and utilize the audio effects that we're going to talk about today, along with samples of the way that the different effects can adjust or correct for typical audio issues. Okay. And the fourth way, so the three ways we've talked about bringing in audio to Audiate are so far as recording right off the cuff, just hit record and talk, which actually I use for scripting. And if you have questions about that, please ask. You can also use it to record from a written script that I'm going to do here in a couple minutes. Import audio from Camtasia, or you can import audio from an audio source outside of those. If you go to the file menu and choose import audio, you can bring in, I've got some waveform options here that I was recording earlier in the day. And then I actually created a MP4 and M4A sample audio that I brought in the other day as well. So if you bring in audio from an external source and hit open, Audiate will transcribe that audio live, and you'll be able to see it right on your screen and play it back and utilize those tools. This is just a really short one. I was giving the definition of a soliloquy. So those are sitting there transcribed and ready for use. So Ryan, before I do the live reading of part of my script, I wanted to check with you and any of the team to find out whether or not there's been any questions that have come in from the audience so far.
Maybe one or two of them. The first question Judy asked, with the free version, or I'm assuming she means the trial, do you lose the recordings if you don't purchase the subscription? Can you answer that?
That's a great question. I cannot answer that question, but I bet you one of the members of our team can. Jake or Kuj, who are in the support group, as well as Mr. Fassbender. If you can help me answer Judy's question, I'd appreciate it. She just wants to know if she uses a trial, makes some recordings. I believe if you make the recordings and export them, right? So you bring them into Camtasia, you export them as a WAV file or an MP4. Those recordings are yours. You just can't bring them back into Audiate once the subscription has run out or the trial has run out to make any further adjustments. I believe that is the answer you might be looking for, Judy. If you need any clarification, just let us know.
Great, thank you. Richard just asked, will Audiate handle the French language? Are there other languages that Audiate works with?
Yeah, that's a great question. So Audiate actually has support for captioning the transcription in 12 language and dialects. So we've got UK English, Australian English, Dutch, French, German, Italian, Brazilian Portuguese, Castilian Spanish, Argentinian Spanish, Colombian Spanish, Mexican Spanish, and Peruvian Spanish. And so those are the languages that they support, that Audiate supports currently for captioning.
Great. I think I'm going to ask you one more, and then I think you're going to answer some of these coming up. But John asked a question: how do you use Audiate for scripting, or can you use it for scripting?
Yeah, so Ryan knows this about me, and I'll be very transparent. I hate scripting. It is my least favorite part of the creation process. I am better off hitting record and just talking about the topic, especially if it's something that I'm a subject matter expert in. Well, what Audiate allows me to do is to literally hit record and talk about something. I could be walking through the product or walking through a workflow on another screen, and Audiate is capturing my audio and transcribing it for me. When I'm done, I can go back and look at Audiate, which we're going to show what that looks like here in just a second, and I can see if there's nuggets of things that I can turn into a script from there. Maybe I said something in 15 words that can be reduced to like 6 words. So I can cut those sections out of my audio and out of the written word and play it back and see if it makes sense as a script. So it's kind of like a brainstorming tool for me in that part of the creation process. I don't know if we ever designed it specifically for that use, but I find it valuable to me to be able to record, because I like the recording voice process, and this is just kind of 2 birds with 1 stone, where I can spitball ideas to myself and then go back and make easy, quick cuts and listen back to it in real time to see if it makes sense. So hopefully that answers that question. All right, excuse me. So we are going to now give a live demonstration of recording a script with Audiate. So this script is like 3.5 minutes long. I'm not going to record the entirety of the script. I'll probably record 6 or 7 lines, and we'll see how it goes from there in terms of if it's enough content for me to use. But this is a actual, I'll put it on my screen. It's an actual script that I'm using for an actual video that will actually live on TechSmith properties here in the next couple months. And it's all about using Snagit tools to draw attention. So Ryan, if we're ready, I'm going to hit record. We're going to get that 3, 2, 1 countdown, and then I'm going to read from my script and have it captured by Audiate. So we'll turn off the camera here just to give full view of this. All right, here we go. You've made your screen capture with Snagit. Now let's look at a few of the most popular built-in tools to help focus your audience's attention. The arrow tool is a The arrow tool is a classic approach to point out parts of an image. You have control over the color, shadow, width, size, and more from the Quick Styles and Tool Properties panel. Once you place an arrow, select it on your canvas to make adjustments as needed. If you have commonly used arrow or any of these tools, please be sure to click on the star to add it to your favorites. The shape tool helps to draw the eye to a focused area. When combined with transparent fill, it frames the desired content. All right, I'm going to hit the stop button here. And what we will see is that as I was reading through my script, Audiate was transcribing it live. Now, I already know there's a lot of edits that I need to make, including a couple of errors. One that was intentional for the purpose of this webinar, and one was because I really coughed. So there you go. But first, I want to show you playing back this audio. I'm going to bring my mouse back to the beginning here, and I can either hit the play button, or the hotkey for playing back your audio is the tab button. So let's click tab and listen back to this audio. This is raw audio just recorded right into Audiate. You've made your screen capture with Snagit. Now let's look at a few of the most popular built-in tools to help focus your audience's attention. The arrow tool is a The arrow tool is a classic approach to point out parts of an image. I mean, aside from the cough, it's not bad, right? I would actually delete a couple of those errors and I'd ship this because I've recorded enough to know where good audio sounds. But there's a lot of, the other part of me is also like, yeah, but I could do so much more with this. In other tools that I've used for this particular purpose, it takes a long time. But I'm going to show you how quick this is within Audiate to edit as if we were editing a document. So the first thing I do is I make what I call wholesale edits. Wholesale cuts are the giant errors that I want to get rid of. And the first thing is this cough section, right? The arrow tool is a, So that entire section I'm going to get rid of. But before I do that, I want to point out a couple quick things. The arrow tool, there are 2 symbols on the screen that may not be familiar to you. And this is where I'm going to make sure that Mr. Dan is listening to make sure that I address this the right way. There is a pink dot and there are dashes. So the dashes are like pauses where you would have natural pauses at the end of your sentences or between words, and Audiate automatically recognizes those. It also does a really good job with the pink dots to find the ums and ahs, the hesitations that have spoken sound with them. So as part of my overall wholesale edits, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to select these sections of words where I coughed and I don't want them anymore. And then I'm literally going to hit the delete button on my keyboard. Gone. So now when I play that audio back, let's start it from here to help focus your audience's attention. The arrow tool is a classic approach to, it's like it never happened. So if you're someone like me who might read the same line 2 or 3 times in a row, I can do that with a subtle pause in my speech and just pick the right one that I want that sounds the best and just delete the other ones. Now, I have been editing audio for a long time, so I can, if I so choose, go down here at the bottom of the Audiate interface and open up the waveform editor, and you see more of a traditional waveform as the audio plays back. Major screen capture with Snagit. Now let's look at a few of the most popular built-in tools to help focus your audience's attention. But I gotta tell you, it's so easy to edit based on the word. So I'm gonna close that waveform and go to my next wholesale edit. So first I go through and eliminate major errors. I think the next one was this one. I said, once you move an arrow, it was supposed to be once you place an arrow. Once you place an arrow. So I know that this entire sentence is incorrect. And I hit delete, and now it's no longer part of my recording. From the Quick Styles and Tool Properties panel. Once you place an arrow, select. Sounds great. So first, I eliminate major errors, whether it's a repeated statement, a cough. This would be like maybe I forgot to close my door to my office and someone knocked on it or came in. I could eliminate all that by simply selecting that section and hitting delete. The next thing that I do is I go up to the edit menu inside of Audiate and I ask it to silence all my hesitations, which is going to take all of those dash marks and actually create silence in them so that they're separate parts of the audio, so that when I bring it into Camtasia, which I do later for editing, I can easily cut this audio up and move it all around. So let's play this back now. So you'll see that when it gets to the hesitation area, it's completely silent. You've made your screen capture with Snagit. Now let's look at a few of the most popular built-in tools to help focus your audience's attention. The arrow, what it helps me with is my up breaths. It's not perfect yet. We're getting there. It gets rid of those noises. The other thing I typically do is I go into the edit menu and I silence all my pauses. That would be all of the other parts of the recording that are set up like this. Sorry, that's my puppy. See, this is something, if I was recording this audio live, I'd pause and delete her section out of it. So let's play this capture back with Snagit. Now let's look at a few of the most popular built-in tools to help focus your audience's attention. The arrow tool. So all by not only silencing the hesitations, which would be the pink dots if I had left any of them in, and silencing all my pauses, I now have really crisp, clean starting and ending points to my audio spoken word sentences. So the next thing I do is, because I'm recording a script that I wrote, oh my goodness, I must have someone visiting our front door. I apologize. The next thing I want to do is I want to go through and correct some of the transcription that happened by Audiate. So it says you've made your screen capture with negative. It's not negative. The word is Snagit. So I'm going to actually select that and I'm going to right click on it. Audiate's going to do its best job to predict what word might be the one I wanted to say, or I can go and do a custom word, which for me is going to be the word Snagit, which is what I actually said in my script. So now that when I play this back, you've made your screen capture with Snagit. Now let's look at a few of the most popular built-in tools to help focus your audience's attention. The reason I would make that correction is that when I'm done with this file, when I'm done with this recording, because I have this transcribed audio, I can share not only the audio, but I can share an SRT file, which is typically used for captioning, that's timed perfectly with my spoken word, so that when someone initiates a closed caption, it'll be perfectly timed and it will be the correct spelling of the words. So I would go through the remainder of this recording. Like, this is not supposed to be error, it's supposed to be arrow. So I'm going to right click on it, and Audiate didn't find the word arrow, so I'm going to replace it with arrow. Sometimes it has to do with the speed at which I'm reading. Sometimes it's my enunciation. It could be a lot of different things that could find that, because down here it selected arrow correctly. But if you have any commonly used arrows, so I need to, when I right click on that time, it knew that I meant the word arrow, so it gave me that as one of my options. So I've made what I call my wholesale edits. I've silenced hesitation, silenced pauses, corrected words, and deleted repeated sections or error sections within the video, within the audio. So if I play this back, you've made your screen capture with Snagit. Now let's look at a few of the most popular built-in tools to help focus your audience's attention. I've got a nice piece of audio here, but it could be better in my mind. And that's the best part about being the creator of the content, right? You can decide when the audio is done. So before we go into the audio effects, which are located down here in this bottom right-hand corner, Ryan, I'm going to reach back out to you or the members of the team to see if there's been any other questions that have come in about things that I've covered so far before we start experimenting with the audio effects.
Just, I think one of them I wanted to verify or have you clarify the pink dots. Can you mention what those mean again?
So the pink dots that show up, those are hesitations. Hesitations are typically your ums and your ahs. So if I were to add part of this recording, so if I hit record here, let's try this out. Ryan, I want to make sure that I'm explaining this correctly, and that we are able to show exactly how to use the tool the best way possible. So this time I intentionally added ums and ahs, Ryan, and every time I did, Audiate identified them with these pink dots. So not only can I see them individually, and I can play them back, I can ask that Audiate goes through and automatically silences those hesitations. So now all those pink dots have nothing associated with them in terms of audio. Ryan, I want to make sure that I'm explaining this correctly and that we are able to show exactly how to. So I can go through and have Audiate not only silence those hesitations. If I'm confident in the rest of my content, I can hit delete and it will actually remove all of them and you can play it back. Ryan, I want to make sure that I'm explaining this correctly and that we are able to show exactly how to use the tool. So very, very powerful in terms of making quick corrections. And this is where I'm going to delete that section out. This is where people that are not confident in their speaking can be confident in the tool like Audiate to be able to make those quick corrections. Reading from a script is a really great way to avoid ums and ahs, right? Because unless you wrote it in your script, you're probably not going to say it. But the way I typically do videos, I might throw those in. And it's nice to be able to make those quick corrections as we go through the process.
Awesome. So a couple more quick questions for you.
Yeah.
Mike asked if it's words are custom words learned and preferred for future recordings. Do you know if that's the case?
It's not the this is something I ask of Dan and the team often, which is words like, well, we have our product names, Camtasia, Snagit. More often than not, if I'm not reading at a high rate of speed, it'll catch those and correctly and transcribe them. Are the custom words learned and kept for future recordings? As of right now, they are not kept in any kind of a library, but the engine behind Audiate that does the transcription is always getting smarter. One thing I did want to mention, because I made some changes to this recording and Dan wanted me to mention, is that you are going to be able to restore silenced audio. So if I silence something like this, I am able to bring back the word if I accidentally silenced it, because when you have a word selected, you can actually bring up its waveform with the little icon below, or you can silence the word individually. So if I didn't want the point, you can restore those silenced pieces as I just did because I had accidentally silenced the word from. Restoring deleted audio is something that's coming to Audiate soon. That means like if I've removed a section and someone comes back and says, you know, the part you removed, I'd really rather have that back. So instead of re-recording it, you can actually delete it, and both the restoring silenced audio and restoring deleted audio, that part's coming soon, are going to persist, meaning after you close and reopen the project, you're able to still bring those things back. So like I said, one of the things about it being a subscription tool is that you're always getting the new hotness that Mike and the team are developing on a regular basis.
All right, Jason, one more quick question.
Yep.
Caroline asked, can you move one audio conversation line up or down? So I'm assuming like if you said the wrong sentence in the wrong order, is it easy to
reorder?
To reorder things?
So in Audiate, and this is where Dan will correct me if I'm wrong, you cannot reorder the audio inside of Audiate as of yet. That might be something that we're looking at. You can do your traditional cuts and paste, right? So if I wanted to, thank you, Mr. Bell, if I wanted to go into the first line and cut it by using the Control X on my keyboard, which has removed it from that part of the video or from the recording, I can do a paste, and it now brings the section down to the end. So helps to draw the eye to a focus. And here's that intro. You've made your screen capture with Snagit. So you can do it with a traditional cut and paste. You cannot click and drag the sections around, but that's a good thing to note.
Cool. Thank you. I think some other questions are coming in, but I'm assuming you're going to answer them coming up. So I'll let you keep
Sounds
going.
Good. All right. So we were talking about how we've made our wholesale cuts. We've silenced hesitations. We've deleted those pieces. This sounds pretty good, but I think I want it to sound a little bit better. And that's where you can then go into the audio effects portion of Audiate. So audio effects can be accessed by clicking on the icon here on the lower right-hand corner, which brings open the properties panel. When you bring it open the first time, it's going to look like this. There's going to be two parts of it. There's going to be an audio effects plus button and a audio meter, so that while you're playing back the audio, you've made your screen capture with Snagit. Now let's look at a few of the most popular built-in tools to help focus your audience's attention. You can see what the output audio level is based on the meter here. One thing you can do with these audio effects panel is, and I typically do this, and this also persists when you go back and forth between projects, is there is a little anchoring button here at the bottom, which snaps it to the right-hand side of your screen. So if you are a user of, say, Snagit or Camtasia, and you're used to that properties panel sitting over on the right-hand side, this will give you some familiarity so that you can always access those tools. So let's take a look at some of the audio effects that you can apply inside of Audiate. And to apply one, you click on the plus button here, which brings up the effects menu. And we have effects in there like remove noise, the volume leveler, equalizer, the de-esser, the remove plosives, remove reverb, and declipper. I can explain all these really lightly, but one of the things you do have is you have access to those supports tutorials here on our tutorial page, which give examples as to how to utilize each one of those. But in essence, the first one you would always typically add to your project is the remove noise feature. And to add it, you simply click on it. It brings it over into your effects panel here to show what is active. And you have a couple of options available to you. You can play back your audio while the effect is on by hitting your tab button. You've made your screen capture with Snagit. Now let's look at a few of the most popular built-in tools to help focus your audience's attention. So remove noise would be able to remove consistent, persistent noises in your background. Like if I had a fan running in my background, or there was a constant from an air handler or a hum from outside, it would be able to remove those noises out. And you can, like I said, make adjustments at its primary dial up here at the top and make playback and see where it sets, get you set for the sound that you're looking for. So one of the things people were saying is, I really can never get it to sound the way I want to. Well, this is one of the ways you can do that. You can always toggle off that tool and still have it attached to your project so that it's always ready for you to use. Or if you don't want it anymore, you can click remove effect here at the bottom. But I would say better than 95% of the projects that I export with Audiate, I have remove noise turned on and I adjust it as needed for me. Now we also have a few presets up here as well. There's a fan noise one, and then there's a hum and buzz one. So you can try some of these preset profiles to see how they work within your video project, within your audio recording. The next thing I would do is then I go through and listen again. You've made your screen capture with Snagit. Now let's look at a few of the most popular built-in tools to help focus your audience's attention. Now I set myself up pretty good, but the next thing I might add is the remove plosives. So plosives are the big blasts of air that come out between from your mouth to your microphone. It happens a lot with letters, words that start with P's and B's because there's a blast of air when you speak those out. It's not super prevalent in my recording, but I'm going to add it just the same and make subtle adjustments as I play this.
You've made your screen capture with Snagit. Now let's look at a few of the most popular built-in tools to help.
So the word popular has been slightly softened. It makes me really, it just sounds better to me. It's kind of like if you're the person who makes your chocolate chip cookies, you know when they taste right. Well, the ease of use of the audio effects and audio help you figure out when it sounds right to you. The things I always tell people, though, is the first tool that you will always add is that denoise, the remove noise option right within Audiate as your first tool. And then the last tool, once you're done experimenting with all the other tools, like Equalizer. Equalizer has the most presets in it for people that have maybe a lighter voice. They can add a little bit more body, or if they're too heavy, they can add some air. You can help clarity with muddy recordings. We even have presets for male and female voices based on traditional, most common ranges of voice. In fact, when I do improve male voice and I play this back.
You've made your screen capture with Snagit. Now let's look at a few of the most.
It adds a little bit more oomph, and I can always make adjustments based on processing. Now, I almost always stay within the top processing dial here within Audiate. This is where I do the majority of my adjustments, but you can go into the different bands and experiment with frequencies and gains and make adjustments wherever you feel most comfortable. Now, Dan and the team did give me permission to say there are these presets that are built into Audiate. One of the things that is coming soon, I'll say very soon with my fingers crossed, is the ability for you to save your own user presets. And this will be a wonderful thing for me personally, because I think my voice sounds different during AM recordings in my office versus PM recordings, because, whether it's the temperature that changes, whether I decide to open up curtains, whether I sit down differently when I come back from lunch or whatever it is, or I move my microphone, being able to save your own presets will even speed up this editing process more, because you'll be able to apply it to your own preset as well. You're also going to be able to set a user preset as the default for an effect as well. So if you're going to add, if you're in need of the de-esser, your S words are really pronounced, you can automatically set a de-esser profile and add that to your recordings so that you can confidently add all the effects that make the audio sound the way you want it right away. The last effect that you would add after you've taken care of reverb, if you want to, you can use one of these effects, you can use all of the effects, but definitely listen back to them as you apply them to make sure it still sounds the way you want. De-esser is for those pronounced S words. The remove reverb takes out the cavernousness of a recording area or an echo. So if I didn't have some sort of dampening on my walls, or I didn't put curtains on my window and you'd hear that bouncing echo, it can help remove that. And declipper is when you get a little too close to your mic and it really gets a hot mic and it's really loud at certain parts. It helps soften those as well. But the last one you always want to add at the end, once you've applied all your other tools that you're going to apply for that recording, is to use the volume leveler. And the volume leveler is going to help with that output volume. So let's play this back.
You've made your screen capture with Snagit. Now let's look at a few of the most popular built-in tools to help focus your audience's attention.
So this allows me to, when I go back and listen to previous tutorials we've done over the years, sometimes my output was pretty quiet. So you have to crank your volume up, and then you play the next video and it's just screaming loud at you because the output of that one was much, much higher. This gets me to an area where I'm going to be able to set a preset when we have those out to get my output level the way I want. We also have a couple of built-in presets as well. So when the audio is done, now what? Well, there's a couple of things you can do. There is an export button in the upper right-hand corner, and you can export right now either to a file where you save the individual audio recording and place it somewhere else or place it into another tool, or you can export it to Camtasia, which is what a lot of people ask about. And when you choose to export it to Camtasia, of course, you have to have the newest version of Camtasia. Camtasia 2021 that supports this output. You can either export it to your media bin, so you can add it to your project later, or if you're already in the project, you can export the audio right to your timeline and make adjustments there. Now, it's not currently syncing to your video as it stands. When you start with audio and bring it in, you would need to manually adjust it to where you want, or cut it up and move it around. That's how I do the majority of my videos, but it's easy enough to send it in. The other thing we do is you can go up to the file menu and choose export script. And when you choose export script, you now have a SRT file. So we'll call this webinar. And now that's saving an SRT file right to my desktop. So if we go into the desktop and we grab webinar, I now have my script that's already set up and ready to go for me to be able to import and sync to my captions later on. It's really, really helpful. One other thing that's very, very new to Audiate, I think, Mr. Bell, within the last week or so, is you do have the ability to export a selection of audio. You can make a selection within the canvas here and right-click on it and choose export selection as audio, and you can actually just export little clips of your recording as well. All right, so we've talked about a lot of those sorts of things that we wanted to talk about. We talked about recording inside of Audiate. We definitely talked about making wholesale edits, silencing hesitations, deleting ums and ahs, applying one or more of the audio effects depending on the effect that you want for your particular project. Ryan, we also talked about getting this audio outside of Audiate. What's something else people might want to know about?
Well, I've got one question. I'm not sure if you answered this or not, but I think Arnaud asked, can we apply effects to audio that we import as well? Not necessarily just your audio recordings, but can you import an audio file and apply effects to those?
So let's save this project real quick. We're just going to save it to the desktop as webinar. And then I'm going to do a new project. And we're going to import that sample audio that we had talked about before. It was that soliloquy example. So we'll bring that back into Audiate. Audiate will transcribe it here. And it should take only a second or two. It's a very small piece of audio. And then I can then utilize the power of Audiate to do many of the same things we just did with my recording. So let's play it back.
A soliloquy is an act of speaking one's thoughts aloud when done by oneself.
So right away, I'm like, well, that word needs to go.
By oneself.
And then I'm going to go in and I'm going to silence all my pauses.
A soliloquy is an act of speaking one's thoughts aloud when by oneself, or regardless of any hearing.
Yeah, so this is already too loud. So the short answer is yes, you can come in here and make all the same adjustments. I would do the remove noise. I'm not even going to mess with that one because I know it's wrong. And I know it's clipping because I was way too close to the microphone. And then I'll level my volume. So just without even going into those, I've added those individually. Let's play this back now.
A soliloquy is an act of speaking one's thoughts aloud. A soliloquy is an act of speaking one's thoughts aloud when by oneself.
One's thoughts. So I'd correct that. Yep. So then I can go in and make subtle adjustments based on the application of the different effects. But yeah, you do not have to record natively in Audiate to clean up or edit the audio. That is correct.
Nice. Thank you for that demonstration. Mm-hmm. This kind of goes along with that. Francis asked a question. I believe Mike answered it for him, but I think it's a good one to answer for everybody. So the effects that you add covers the entire recording. You can't just select a portion of a recording and add an effect to that portion. Is that right?
Yep, that's correct. Yeah. When you add an effect to the recording, it covers the entirety of that project, right? So if I'm adding declipper to my project and there's really only one or two places that needed the declipper, it's going to apply to the whole audio project as a whole, but it's really focusing on those two spots. It's not going to see other ones that need to be affected. Same with like, let's say, remove reverb. Even if the whole recording doesn't sound echoey and cavernous, it's still going to apply itself to the whole recording, but it's really going to be most effective on the spots where that is the intent of the tool at the time.
Perfect. And I know sounds like there's a lot of people here that are using Camtasia right now. Are you going to show how to export audio from here into Camtasia, or is that going to be another session?
So I'll show how to do it. We definitely showed that to do it, you just click on the export button. If I click export to Camtasia and I want to export the audio to my media bin, I can select that option. I hit export. And then as long as I have the current version of Camtasia installed, it'll close down Audiate, or minimize it, I should say. And then it's going to launch Camtasia, and it's going to bring that audio into the location I chose, which of course was either the media bin or to the timeline. I don't think I've ever sent it to the timeline the way I do my my editing, but that's just my choice. I always put it in the media bin because I like to have a little bit more control over it. So let's see, that's just a sign-in error, but the audio is sitting here in the media bin. And if I add it to my timeline, I have the entirety of it here.
You've made your screen capture with Snagit. Now let's look at a few of the most popular built-in tools to help focus your audience's attention.
And then I'd make a split probably and adjust the audio to match whatever's on my screen. I don't have the screen recording portion of this done. I only have the audio completed, but I actually have, well, let's see, recent projects, tools that draw attention. If I go to this actual project, the actual start of my project, this is the recording I did in Audiate yesterday, ready for this project.
You've made your screen capture with Snagit. Now let's look at a few of the most popular built-in tools to help focus your audience's attention.
So I have this entire audio file ready for me, and then I will utilize this to split up and move around as needed. This is, I think, when people are asking about, I think Donna was asking how to sync with the video. Because I'm creating the video from scratch, there isn't really any syncing other than I'm positioning things where I want them to be, but I'm not matching a beat or a marker or anything like that. But you can bring it in and be able to use your audio to match your project. Now, if you're inside of Camtasia, like I am right now, and you have a selection or a piece of media that's just audio, and you have the newest version of Camtasia, if you right click on that audio and have Audiate installed, you can select Edit in Audiate, and it will take that audio, it'll render it out, it'll bring it into Audiate as if because you didn't start in there, you actually had the audio in Camtasia. If you had used the screen recorder option and just recorded your audio at the same time, which a lot of you mentioned you did, it'll transcribe it, and it will do all of the conversion here into Audiate, and then I can start doing those same sort of edits that I did before, where I can apply effects, I can move things around, I can delete them. And then when I'm done, because this came from a Camtasia project, when I go to export, the options are a little different because there's now an option here that says I can either pull that audio back into the project I started from, or I can open it in a brand new project if I so chose. So if I did voiceover or use the voice narration tool inside of Camtasia and sent it to Audiate to clean up and brought it back, it creates that loop where I could do that at once. But for the majority of my videos that have a script, I start in Audiate, get my audio to the point where I'm comfortable with it, then I send it out to Camtasia and create the video around that. Not everybody does it that same way. That just happens to be the way that I do it.
Awesome. With this project open right here, Jason, one of the things that I think is really powerful with Audiate and Camtasia is that SRT file that you mentioned earlier.
Yep.
So when we caption our videos, if you're using Audiate right here, you can now, can you show that process for getting this into Camtasia?
Yep. So the thing that I showed before when we just did our recording from Audiate and I chose file, export script, it literally gave me a transcribed version of what I spoke, right? It was the actual script. Because this came from Camtasia, when I do it, it's actually going to save it as an option as an SRT file. So if we call this webinar closed caption, now when it saves it from Audiate and I open that file back up just outside of Camtasia or outside of Audiate, we have, I'll just open it with open. Oh, it's misbehaving. No, just open this with a with Notepad and show it. There it is. Thank you very much. Notepad. So with Notepad open now, it shows an actual transcribed script as a caption file. So it's got all the timing matched up to it, so that if I brought this in, or I asked someone like Ryan, if I wanted you to do a voiceover, I could have you do the SRT using Audiate and bring it back in and match it up to my recording. Then when it's inside, I have that SRT file available to me. Let's go ahead and close Audiate here. We'll quit without saving for this one. And then I come back into my Camtasia project. You can go through the caption options and choose import caption, and that SRT file that we just sent out from Audiate is available to us to be able to match up for our project as well. So Ryan, we are nearing the end. We're actually at the end. So I want to see if there's any other questions that came in from anyone else before we go back to the closing part of our webinar today.
You know what, there's some real quick one. Do you recommend a particular microphone to use with Audiate on a Mac?
On a Mac. So generally speaking, if you have a USB microphone available to you, any one of them is going to do a pretty good job. The one I use is this Audio Technica AT 2020. I've been using it for, I think we're coming up on 7 years now. I also have headset mics where, you know, it's got a boom mic that comes around to your mouth. My recommendation is personally to use some sort of desktop mic, whether it's you know, a little $30 Logitech or whatever brand one you can put on your desk, mainly because when I talk, I get really excited and I'm a bigger dude, which means there's a lot of breathiness to take care of. And if I'm using a headset with a boom mic, I'm constantly talking into that with a breath. Whereas from here, with a microphone that's separated from me, I can think about it a little bit, give it a little bit of distance, and get a cleaner audio recording right from the get-go. I've had really good luck with Audio Technica. I've had really good luck with Blue microphones. I would try one or two, especially if you're going to be doing this on a regular basis. Just find one you're comfortable with and then learn what you can about that tool. A lot of these microphones have a lot of different things built into them. You can experiment with different settings and different levels of how they can be utilized. Definitely learn about the tool that you have if you can.
Awesome. Would you mind showing where they can go to see new webinars that are being added? And
Yep. So if you, yeah, absolutely. So if you go to techsmith.com, at the top underneath the support menu where you can also find our tutorials, there is a link to our webinars page. And when you click on that, you're going to see webinars that are put on not only by our marketing team, like we have a free digital full day event coming up on October 5th that you can sign up for. There's actually a couple sections. There's speaker lineups. There's all kinds of things talking about how to level up workplace communication with visuals, which is really helpful when we're all not still in the office. If you scroll down, you'll see all of the product specific ones, including our Getting Started series with Camtasia. I've got one coming up next week that's getting started. We're doing Make Videos Faster. We've got ones on Snagit, as well as the one you're attending today, which is the Edit Audio as easily as a document with Audiate. And then you can always at any time scroll just below to this View Previous Recordings button. And every webinar that we've conducted, we put up as a recording here on this page. They also go live to the TechSmith YouTube channel, but you have access to these at any point. So if you see one that you wanted to attend and you couldn't, and you didn't register for it, you still have access to all the recordings here on our webinar recording page. So definitely experiment with those as well.